Supergirl, issue 6, legacy number 275. Sophie Campbell writing with ROSI KAMPE on the art.
Shared art.
Sure, well, sure.
Also...
Sorry, yeah. So
yes.
well, I've just gotten the two names written down, but you're right. Sophie Campbell's also doing art, yeah, because it switches between like the nightmare she's having and then the real world. So the real world, Sophie Campbell, and the nightmare world is the other artist,
ROSI KAMPE.
Yeah. So yeah, it was okay.
I love a good Halloween issue of a comic, right? Like the girls are dressed up in costumes, they're trying to trick or treat, and Kara's feeling out of sorts, but I don't know what this book's supposed to be doing, right? Like, I get that we're getting into Kara's head and whatnot, but just like these kind of one-off kind of things where we're exploring where Supergirl has been in DC continuity, I just think it's a little bit weird. You know, not that it's bad or anything, it's just not what I was expecting in a Supergirl book.
I mean, that's getting into specifics, because, yeah, she sees herself, she sees a Red Lantern at one point, and she's like, oh, no, not you guys, I don't want to be a Red Lantern again. But, like, you know, so she's sick, she's having these nightmares, and the others are worried about her, and it sort of ties into the trick-or-treating and whatnot. But I think for me, you know, because I mean, just to sum up, right? So it ends up being this character Nightflame that's like behind what's happening to her, but Nightflame exists like inside her. She's like the dark shadow of Supergirl's inner brain or psyche or something.
Yeah, it is her shadow self, right? It's everything that she worries about being. You know, it's that darker side. Like, what if she ever does let go, right? Because we see a version of her, you know, from when they brought her back in the mid-2000s with Darkseid, and she's all, you know, the black bikini top and the red pants, and, you know, that Michael Turner drew, and it was kind of creepy even back then, you know. So we get into that and the whole Red Lantern of it, and then her, Nightflame also brings up the version of Cyborg Superman that is Zor-El, you know. So it's all these dark aspects that exist in Kara, and how, you know, they'll always be within her, and it's up to Kara to kind of keep this Nightflame kind of in check. Because she has her friends, and that's what she relies on.
Yeah, but do I like that there's a shadow self that represents all this? Like it's a separate character in her head. I don't think I do.
I don't.
This all feels a bit like this is what you do with Two-Face. You have Two-Face be like the alternate persona in a head. Yeah, I don't know. This just feels weird that this is just always in there. It's so weird because like this book has been very light and fluffy, and it's been pleasant enough. But I've said a couple of times that it's kind of got a ceiling where like after a couple of issues I'm like, okay, this is an enjoyable enough read, but it definitely has this kind of like limit of like how good I think it can get, because it feels like it's not trying to be over a certain thing. And weirdly, this issue is kind of trying to go for a bigger idea, not necessarily a bigger story, because I don't know how much this is going to necessarily be a thing that they go back to, or maybe it will be. Maybe this idea of her fighting her shadow self and like these instincts kicking in or whatever is going to be a thing. Maybe she's infected with something. Maybe there's something inside her that's like made this, you know, take form. It's not something that would happen naturally, which is something I don't like the idea of. But it's almost like them doing this. His like almost like this is going to sound mean, but by reaching higher, which I'd always encourage writers and like creatives to do, it's almost like exposing the cracks a little bit, and the fact that the book isn't like capable of like going that deep or doing something that's that like big or interesting. Because by the end of this issue, I was sort of thinking, you know, on a busy week, this is the one that's starting to feel like a little bit like a you know, I don't want to say chore, but like it's feeling like a little bit of an obligation in the big list of books. And I think this always happens to me when it's a book that's this light, where I'll be like, oh, this is a light, fun read, and I'll be fine with it for a few issues, but after a little bit, I'm like, oh, that's not enough to sustain it. Usually by a certain point, I'm like, it has to have a little bit more going on to keep me engaged. And the weird thing is that I think this is the issue that's trying to have a little bit more going on. It's trying to get into a bit more character introspective stuff, but I think the problem for me is that it's all this kind of like, you know, we're doing all of this in her head where there's this entire dark realm that exists, and there's a dark version of her that she's fighting, and it's all just, you know, we've seen this kind of thing done so many times at this point, across all media, but especially in comics, because it's so easy to just draw this, and so easy to just go in and see, here's the dark version of this character, and they're going to talk to each other, and it's fine, I think, sometimes when it's done really well, but usually when it's done really well, it feels like something that it's built up to, or it's an ingrained part of the story from the very start. This kind of feels relatively like it's just kind of out of nowhere. Like, thematically, it isn't. Like, thematically, I get that this book's all about identity and her questioning who the real her is, and that's why there was a villain pretending to be her in the first couple of issues. It's why we've been kind of doing the costumes and all that. Like, it all kind of ties into this idea of who is the real Supergirl. And I appreciate that, but this whole, she's talking to this like shitty looking dark fantasy version of herself, I don't know, it just kind of like made me roll my eyes, and I was just kind of like,
who's only able to get through because she became Satan Girl during the Lesla stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the other twist of it, and I was just like, we're putting a hat on a hat here. Like, there's a Halloween issue, right, for October, and there were ways to do this, but it being its shadow self, because like you pointed out, identity's been a big theme since it started, and this feels like it fits in. But why does it have to be this dark fantasy character that's talking to her? Why is it bringing up things from the past that we don't need to, you know, get into with this version of Supergirl? You know, the identity of where does she fit in with her cousin and the rest of the super family? I think that goes enough. But to bring up all these darker versions of her...
No, I mean, I kind of get in theory what they're doing. Like, I mean, because every comic book character does this, where they do the issue of Nightwing where they think about their past, and you get, like, here's the one in the red suit, here's the one in the original Titans version of Nightwing, here's him dressed as Robin. They all, like, all characters get this at some point. I have no problem with that, because they always do it, and it's fine. It's more just the way it's handled, where it's this dark fantasy world, it's in her head, and it's the other version of her's got a name, and it's just like, it feels a little bit fan fiction-y, I guess, is how I feel about it. Like, it feels like there's no weight to this idea right now for me, and it's just kind of out of nowhere we have all this in her head, when that's never really been a part of, like, Supergirl, or never been a part of, like, if you want to build to this and say that she's starting to have these little, you know, like, start having little moments where she's having these little, like, moments, and then build up to there's like another, like, identity of herself, like, in her mind, like, build to it or something. But here it just kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere, and they just hit us with it so heavy that I was just kind of like, I don't know, just turned off by it, where I'm like, this doesn't really click in for me.
And it does. There's been no seeding of this character since Satan Girl, right? If we had a little bit of things here or there that Kara's starting to doubt things, or whatever,
even like
I feel like they just throw us in.
Even a moment where she's looking in the mirror and sees, like, a reflection look a bit evil or something, like in a previous issue, would have been like just a little seed that we're building to something like this. I was very.
Also, the character's name being the smash up of Flamebird and Nightwing, of Nightflame, too. Again, like you said, it feels a little fanfiction.
That feels fanfiction-y, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, but then there's other stuff that I really do like when it goes over, like, all of her doubts and her thoughts, and there's her over someone that's sick, right? Clearly in a bed, and then they bring up Woman of Tomorrow with Crypto, right? With the arrow in him, and he's sick, and then her rescuing the girl in Woman of Tomorrow. I like all that stuff because thematically I understand here, and I like the way that it's formatted on the page, you know, because there's less of that Nightflame kind of character. So it's a very mixed bag. That when it started with them trick-or-treating, I went, oh, Leslie's gonna get to be trick-or-treating in this, you know, human custom of giving out treats and trying to be scary, and this book's been light. So after was it the last issue that had Crypto and the rabbit?
I think that was the last issue, yeah.
Yeah. I was expecting something more in line with that, something a bit more light, and, you know, we can still tell a story about identity, especially on Halloween, right? You're pretending to be someone that you're not. And how does that make you feel, and that type of stuff. And then friend up what we got, you know, it's okay. Like, it doesn't make me fully check out, but I'm definitely less inclined to read this first on a busy week.
I was definitely zoning out during a lot of this, to the point where honestly I feel like I barely remember a lot of the stuff that happens in the dream. I just like, it was making my eyes glaze over. I was just kind of like, we're doing this stuff, and yeah, and you know, there's a lot of books, and you know, this week and last week were pretty busy for books, and like this is definitely the one this week where I'm like, I mean, this is leaning towards drop territory, I think. Like, I've not been that enthusiastic about reading the last few issues, and they've been fine. Like, you know, it's not like I had bad things to say about that pet issue. It was perfectly entertaining, but it just doesn't feel like something I need to read, or, you know, it's just this. It's not quite like, it's not that you can't have a fun book be like must read, because you can. It's not all about the story being important, but I think that there's definitely a type of book where it just feels a little bit too light and fluffy for me to like super get into. And even when I do like them, I always tend to like lose interest a little bit after a few issues, just because fundamentally it's like, you know, I'm checking in just to, I don't know, like I hate saying this because I love Supergirl, and I really want to be reading a Supergirl book that I really like, and it's just I don't know, it's kind of been veering between, you know, not bad, okay, decent, kind of it's been kind of in that range pretty much, and then this issue I think is my least favorite by a reasonable margin. So, yeah, don't know. So I mean, how are you feeling? Because I mean, I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, this could be in the next vote for them to like try and save it kind of territory. I don't know if you feel that way.
Go ahead, put it in the next Patreon vote, because it feels like that's what you want to do anyways.
Well, I feel like I'm pretty. I mean, the book itself, I'm pretty wishy-washy with, and I feel, you know, like, I think last issue at least had a lot of the cute animal stuff. I feel like this issue, I found myself not having much to say other than just how, like, whatever it made me feel. So, you know, it's not even like I'm angry. It's not even like I've got things to like rip apart and say this is terrible for this reason and that reason. You know, that'd at least be passionate. So, anyway, there you go. That's what are you giving Supergirl?
I'm gonna give this a 6.5. I did like the art. I thought the art was really, really nice.
I mean, yeah, the art was fine. Like, I have no problems with the art, and the split in the art was obviously perfectly fine because it was, you know, real world and dream world. 5.
Okay. Perfectly mediocre.
Yeah, it's right down the middle for me, which is not exciting to read or talk about, honestly.